I'm glad that my friend from Minnesota brought up the important issue of detention. The Department of Homeland Security and ICE have 380,000 people in 2009 that were detained at taxpayer expense. So, and one of the things we fear with the Arizona law is these could actually be American citizens out working one day. Oh, don't have your papers, in detention, could take a week, could take a month. There are many Americans that might have difficulty furnishing those records. Again, I point in particular to those that were born of a midwife or are very elderly or whose birth hospitals have been subject to fires or disasters and records have been dislocated or lost or simple human error. Each of these 380,000 people that were detained last year were detained at taxpayer expense. Now, I would argue that that's not good for them, and it's not good for us, the taxpayers. First of all, as my colleague from Minnesota mentioned, 107 died, with many cases of medical treatment being withheld, abuses in the incarceration system. In many cases, they are put in with actual criminals who have been convicted of crimes. And again, these are people that are not serving criminal sentences. They are being detained, awaiting a decision on their immigration proceedings. They might either then be released into our country or expelled to a different country. But despite that, they're held in prisons and jails and are often mixed with the general prison population, putting them at risk for their life and limb, all at taxpayer expense. This Arizona law, to the extent that it allows for the apprehension of more people, will simply result in a greater taxpayer expense of putting people up at the tune of $120 a day. You know, that's what it costs. And when I looked at it, I said, gosh, we can put them up at Motel 6 for a quarter of that cost. And yet we continue, taxpayers across our country, because of our complete failure to protect our border and have real immigration policy that works for our nation. Over 300,000 people were incarcerated at taxpayer expense last year. Comprehensive immigration reform is an American solution. It's common sense, it's fair, it's balanced. Overwhelming support from the American people. 81% agree that comprehensive reform is a balanced approach that's fair to taxpayers. Voters across the board, from liberal to conservative, believe it's unrealistic to simply try to deport our way out of this problem. 7 in 10 voters agree that in addition to increased enforcement and securing the border, illegal immigrants should be required to register and meet conditions for permanent status. A comprehensive approach to immigration reform secures our borders, cracks down on employers that hire illegally, makes sure that we have real verification of who's able to work, require that illegal immigrants pay taxes, learn English, to be eligible for permanent status. Voters should know that comprehensive immigration reform is an orderly process and will turn what has been completely uncontrolled and chaotic into a flow of immigrants to continue to build our nation and to reestablish the rule of law across our great nation. Americans are tired of posturing on the left and the right. They're tired of the lack of solutions coming from Washington. They don't want to hear us complain about this, complain about that, hyperbole on this, hyperbole on that. What the people of Arizona have very clearly said they want, and what the people of our country have very clearly said they want, is for us here in Congress, the only place that this problem can be fixed, to fix this problem. Border security is a joke. Enforcement of our laws at the workplace is a joke. We have over 10 million people violating the law every day in our country. The rule of law, our sovereignty, has been undermined. Taxpayers are putting up hundreds of thousands of foreign nationals a year at the cost of over $100 a day. Why not put them up at cheap hotels and save 3/4 of that? I don't know, but this is what we're doing. Does this make sense to anybody, Madam Speaker? The answer is no. I have brought this up at almost all of my town hall meetings in Colorado, and I have yet to find a single constituent. I have a lot of diversity among my constituents, from the Tea Party patriots on the right to socialists on the left and everything in between, and not one of them is happy with the immigration system in this country. Not one of them is happy that we are putting up 300,000 people a year at the cost of $120 a day. Not one of them is happy that we have an undocumented population of over 10 million working illegally in this country. Not one of them is happy. And yet, to this point, Congress has failed to hear and act upon that. And I believe that we would continue to fail at our own peril. And it's incumbent upon this Congress, with the fierce urgency that the American people have placed this issue before us, to solve this issue. We are a nation of laws, and we are also a nation of immigrants. And that's why we need to make sure that our laws, our immigration laws, reflect our interests as Americans, to create jobs for Americans, to provide safety and security for Americans, to help American businesses grow and succeed, which is why immigration reform is supported by chambers of commerce and business interests as well as unions, by faith-based communities, by law enforcement. We here in Congress should not be afraid of talking about solving the immigration issue. We should be afraid of not talking about solving the immigration issue. Every day that goes by without bills being moved forward and bills being dropped and a solution being discussed is a day that the American people will hold their members of Congress accountable for not doing anything to solve this pressing national issue. I yield to my friend.